Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve 2015 and I wanted to do this video because Father loved you so much and I thought you could benefit from the talk because I know I could. I'd like to start off by saying I'm upset. I'm upset with unificationism. I'm also realizing with recent events with the schisms and everything, in the debates about the schisms, that unificationism even is it's an obnoxious word. It's like, it's a pretentious word. It's like, we're not unifiers, so we shouldn't be using that word. We're not unifiers. God is the unifier. You know, there's not one thing you can do to make me like you or make me come to you, so nothing you do is going to unify us. All you can do is hold your hand out in sincere friendship, centering on some common goal. And if I don't choose that common goal, or I want to snub you, there isn't anything you can do about it. And the same thing goes for God. So, you know, who's really the unifier? I mean, when we say we're unificationists, I think it's obnoxious. I mean, if we really know what unifies people, we should say that we're about that instead of saying that we're unificationists. And what I think really unites people is this. Ultimately, the blessing unites people. That's why it's God's dwelling place. Ultimately, I'm talking about the moment where you give a man to a woman to man, right? That is the greatest gift you'll ever be able to give to your children, okay? And that's it. That's the center of everything. That's why God dwells there. That's why the most important place for God is the place where man and woman's sexual organs meet, because the greatest meaning exists there than any other event in the physical world. And to believe in that is to believe what Father has been saying about who God is and who ultimately we are. We can at least admit that Father talked about absolute sex a lot, and he did say that it's the dwelling place of God. And he called the sexual organ the Holy of Holies. And it goes all the way back to the tabernacle and the temple in the Old Testament, because it's a very important thing to God. And okay, so really, if we say that we're about unifying people, we should be, I'm saying today, I want to be a blessingist. The problem is, you know, the blessing is confused or conflated or with marriage, you know, and marriage is a loaded word. It's you know, it's so many different things to different people. So if you say, I want to give you the blessing, and they say, what's that? And then what you leave them with is some explanation that makes them think that they're going to get married, they're really not receiving it from Christ, from the true parents, right? So, and they're not, and if they're not receiving it from the true parents, and they have a reception problem, they can receive it physically. In other words, they can embrace their spouse physically, but they cannot embrace the meaning of the gift from the parents' sphere to them. Okay, then they won't be quickened by it, and there's a bunch of problems with that, because to my understanding, the Bible says a man leaves his mother and father, cleaves to his wife. It means that his energy source, okay, the reason why he can get up in the morning and feel loved, used to be his mother and father. That's what parents are for kids. They are validators, you know, the chief validator of a child's life. But the spouse becomes the chief validator of the person's life. So a person leaves his mother and father and cleaves to his wife. And so they have a basis of love in their life. And what does that do for them? It makes them go out into the world with their cup full. And when your cup is full, you're more peaceful inside. And when you're more peaceful inside, you're more You're more forbearing towards people. You're more so many things that are good. As a matter of fact, we cannot do without it. Go ahead and try to build an ideal world, forcing people etiquette codes and things like this. No, people are going to love each other based, because it's overflowing. The cup overflows. Jesus said, we love them because he first loved us. In other words, the dynamics of love is there's actually kinetics. You know how pool balls, if I have the white ball hits the red ball, and the red ball hits the blue ball into the corner pocket, right? Okay, one thing strikes another thing strikes. So God's love strikes us, gives us the momentum to collide into other people in love, So Jesus said, we love because he first loved us. Well, where is the first love? That's actually a forgotten term that Father used. Um, and there's this whole thing that I'm upset about why terms like that was kind of swept under the rug and not part of our. Anyway, there's a lot of problems with so-called unificationism that today I'm very, I'm very frustrated about personally, because I don't like us being as crippled as we are. And there are theories about, why we are like this. I mean, that we've been infiltrated and blah, 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 blah. And, we could do a long analysis and show the fallen nature, the collective fallen nature, blah, 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 blah. And I think what I really want to say is Christmas Eve 2015. And I'm struggling with these things. Obviously, I have ownership of these things. Otherwise, why would I do a video like this? Obviously, I care. We're coming into a new year. And at the turn of last year, Young Janim did his breaking silence. And we almost had a year. And I've been debating online. And I see a lot of people just really don't value what true parents gave us. Now, true parents gave us their word, and some people want to change it. That's heartbreaking. But true parents gave us a spouse, and some people want to trivialize the tradition by which we received that spouse. It's almost like how he did it must have no meaning, and it's really, I find it arrogant. I find ignorant people sometimes are very arrogant, because they think if they don't understand it, then there must be no meaning in the first place. I'm seeing a lot of that. And I'm seeing Father's tradition suffer at the hands of that. And I'm like, in other words, if I can't get you to understand the deeper meaning why Father attached a certain aspect of the tradition to the ceremony, right? Then you say it's not worth holding on to. I mean, that kind of insanity is going on. I mean, like, God has to give up something because he can't get you to understand its importance. I mean, that's not only ignorant, but that's arrogant ignorance. And I've seen a lot of that. So, I mean, I'm not happy about the word unificationism because it's kind of obnoxious. And I'd like to think that I'm a blessingist, but I'm seeing a lot of people in my sphere that, I mean, they could just easily discard the most critical aspects of the blessing. I mean, we're not in a good conversation about it, so what can I do? It's like, it's Christmas Eve. It's 2015. And I'm wondering, what can I do of any value? And I'm very frustrated. I'm very frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated for God. I think God is frustrated. I think God is happy that he has Father, but I don't think he's happy about the things that's going on after Father passed away. And I think God is happy that people are seeking to understand his tradition better, led by Hyung Jin. And I don't think that God is happy that on the other side of the world, people are just really being dismissive about things that Father set up, just arbitrarily, without any explanation, just discarding them, like the original Chung Sung Kyung. And do you realize that Father never performed a blessing by himself? Because he wanted he wanted people to see parents giving you. He wanted the full expression of God, that on earth your eyes would see parents. But because people don't understand those kinds of things, like, okay, you do a ceremony so that on earth it is claimed. If it's claimed in an official way on earth, it's going to be claimed in heaven. So just because you don't understand that process, right? Even though it's explained in the DP about vitality elements, that actions here have effect on the spirit and the spirit world. And that's the purpose of the physical world. I don't know, maybe you then, some of you make it really hard because you say things like, oh, you're being too heady, it's all about love. And I don't know, you don't really understand the issue of love too. I mean, it's like you really tie in God's hands. You have an excuse for everything, and I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about it. And then I have to divide the difference between true love and false love, and how true love is always principle. Yes, love is stronger than the principle, but true love is harmonized with the principle. So it's not as though, the principle becomes meaningless on account of love. And to even have this debate, just because I'm trying to say, when I'm trying to bring clarity, and then you say the whole quest for clarity is a heady thing, right? It's heady, and how come we don't have more love? And then, a lot of your definitions of love may be just being nice to you, leaving you alone so that you can not deal with these things or something. So I'm like, this is very frustrating. It's very frustrating. I mean, we unificationists used to say that we have all the answers. Well then, if we have all the answers, why you turn around and call us heady? Or call your own people heady? Or if you say, we unificationists, our love, our standard of love is closer to God's standard of love because the Messiah taught us da-da-da-da-da-da. But you don't even appreciate the principle the principle that validates that love as being true love. So, I mean, and you fail to recognize when love is really satanic. It's this same type of satanic love, but you say it's love, so it's more important. I mean, this kind of thing is heartbreaking, watching this happen to you. And look, maybe you didn't fall while you're playing these kinds of, and I call them games, they're games, because it's totally not true. It's not helping. They're just deflections from dealing with reality, like different excuses. Meanwhile, what's the real fruit? If I was an 18-year-old kid teeing up for the first time, my first at bat, you know, I'm about to play this game of life, and I watch a bunch of adults acting like this, I'm not proud of them, and I'm not expecting them to come through for me. So look at the results with the blessed children. I mean, are they keeping their purity? Are they keeping it an allegiance to the blessing? Are they keeping, an allegiance to spreading the realm of the blessing? You know, you cannot have the world that God needs without the blessing realm being spread. And blessing is not political. It is the greatest expression of God's love here on earth, and it has to come from the owner. And if it doesn't come from the owner, then it means that, you know, if you're a thief. So the blessing, your love companion, your marriage partner has to come from the true owner. And that is God, His Messiah, and those people who He anointed to propagate the blessing. It's not politics. You know, and, I'm very disheartened by the amount of games that people played this year. So this is Christmas Eve, 2015. I'm praying to God that next year will be improved. And me, for myself, I'm going to make some changes. And I don't think I'm going to concern myself with people who call themselves unificationists. I think there is a new collective. The eagles gather. It's organic. I think people with eyes to see the issues work together. I really don't care about the church. I really don't care about pop unificationism. And a lot of you have been my friends along the way, and you haven't heard from me in the last few months. And it's because being with you, most people follow a pattern that I'm not going to tolerate anymore. I mean, like, things are getting serious, and I know some of you are allergic to serious conversation, so I haven't been talking to you. And I don't know what you think of unificationism, and I do care, but I do not expect us to have any meeting here, because many of you don't buckle down and really put on your thinking cap. You kind of go with the crowd, and the crowd has been poisoned. So I just don't know what to do for you. I know that until you think that I'm less marginal, you're not going to really have give and take with what I'm saying. And you've been doing that for years. And, you know, the truth is a majority. And God has led me to, you know, in a really important place. I'm living here in Pennsylvania, and I can only say God put me here at the same time that to attend and help the second and the third king of Chanoguk. So the truth is a majority, and my dedication to it must have some value to God. So these imps in the church and pop unificationism look at a person like me and have marginalized me. So you really haven't, even though I tried with you in your kitchen and my kitchen for years, to reach you and get you to buckle down and take the principle seriously, right? Precept upon precept. But you just look at the crowd. And if they're marginalizing me, then the sense that just came out my mouth must not be worth anything. And you operate like that. And I've called you friend. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. You need to grow up and own your own mind. You need to take care of the things that you don't understand. You do. And you cannot do it in the easy pop culture way. It's not going to come by osmosis because you got into a group together. You're going to do it because you have that book in your hand. Father gave us so many books. But you got one of them in your hand and you're dealing with it. And you're cracking it open. And you're leaning back and you're thinking about what that means. And you're underlining it. And it's an issue for you for a couple of weeks. Okay? Until you get clear. And then you move on to the next thing. That is what I mean by take care of your mind. And you got to stop letting pop unificationism pretend that it's doing that for you. And you've got to stop pretending that it's doing that. I'm talking to you. Look, if we never hung out in my kitchen, if I never hung out in your kitchen, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my friends. You have to go down the rabbit hole with Father's words. You have to get lost. Get lost. You have to risk looking like a weirdo who's lost in a quest. Otherwise you're going to die. You always think that tragedy is somebody else's family. That blessed child who took their clothes off and mixed seed, sperm, and egg with the devil is somebody else's kid. Until it happens and you realize you had dropped the ball. Well, look, the ball's been dropped. If you've been this pop culture person, friend, and many of you have, and I'm not saying names, but you know who you are. Don't be surprised that this dumb crap, this weakness, emerges in your children in a certain way. There are going to be weaknesses that I'm not dealing with emerging in my kids. But you know what? There are certain weaknesses that will not arise in my kids because I'm at war with them. And I'm not outsourcing these issues to pop culture, to pop unificationism. Pop unificationism is not raising my kids. Pop unificationism is not taking care of my mind. Don't you understand God as well as you need to? No. If not, fix it. And you know, this is from years of talking to you. I can hear your spirit world. Your spirit world saying, well, how much can we know? Only Father really knows. So you don't study because of that cop-out. Bullshit. If you had loved the word, you would have more to say in this conflict. But you're leaving God alone to deal with this conflict between Hyung Janim and True Mother. I can tell you this. I can tell you that Mother is wrong enough in what she did to the tradition that I will never send my children to a ceremony officiated by a single female or male on stage giving the blessing. Why? Because in the Chung Sung Young Father called that an odd shoe. And he said that those odd shoe ceremonies are conducted by the Archangel. But guess what? Some of the leaders of pop unificationist culture act like that. The fact that Father said that is negligible. So you buy it. And you call yourself my friend. And we talked in kitchens a lot. And, you know, And I can't stand you for it. Because you quit on God. You quit on God for that groupthink at the most critical issue. Do you realize the archangel blessing is not the true blessing? And Hyung Jinim's taking these issues on. And you're leaving him to fight for himself. So how long can I call you friends? I am certain that what Mother did with the blessing tradition is so off. I will never let my kids go to those ceremonies the way that they're conducted. It is not infusing God. It is under satanic accusation because it is not what Father set up. Father never did it that way. If Mother wasn't there, Father used one of his daughters to officiate with him. He never did it by himself. He never said that the Holy Spirit was standing next to him. Okay? So he never had us try to imagine that Mother was standing next to him. Right? He put a female body there to represent. Represent means there's something concrete on earth that has behind it a spiritual standard behind it. It's a representative. So there's a representative woman there, so then he can go forward. The representative woman represents the true mother. So then you can receive from true parents on earth. And so that it can be bound in heaven. I don't understand why this is complicated. This is why I will not let my kids go to one of those blessings. This is the fruit of me thinking. This is the fruit of me studying and caring about what Father said. Not pop unificationism. So a lot of you, I'm telling you, we're drifting far apart. And it's been way past due for me to tell you this. It's not because of Hyung Jinim. It's because you don't care. And you know, I'm sorry. I feel really bad. I'm not saying I'm responsible for why you don't care. But I do understand the heartbreak that we're dealing with. Not just Father passing, but we have been ravaged in unificationism by all kinds of forces. The Christian spirit world, they thumb their nose at us. The political sphere, they thumb their nose at us. We have to put, you know, some kind of a benefit on a silver platter for people before they say a nice thing about Father. And that's a heartbreaking life that we live through. And you want to quit. I mean, I think that's really what's happening. It's like a slow suicide when your kids are falling and you go, it'll happen. Well, that's pretty much like a slow spiritual suicide, really. I mean, in other words, you quit. I quit too. You know, I just went vegetarian about 3 weeks ago because the doctor said my liver, you know, wasn't doing good. So I said, you know, I'm going to go back to what I did when I joined the church. I was already like 2-year vegetarian. So I went back to vegetarianism because I realized eating bad foods was a form of self-mutilation because I was upset inside. And I'm upset over what's happened to Father. He's not respected. This impish little political people all around the world play the same card on Father, thinking that they can ignore him. You do too, because of pop unificationism, and you thinking that you can't really know the mind of God. So you don't pick up those books and start dealing with them. We never have those conversations like, hey, you know, Father said this the other day, and I was really thinking, and hey, Jamal, what do you think? Do you know how few of you actually engage in a conversation like that with me? It's disheartening. I'm not friends with owners. But I understand. You thought we'd get more help. You thought that we were in it together, that our culture and the sphere that we were creating together was all fine. But and the truth is, it's not. And that's a big letdown. But I tell you this, man, I tell you this, look, with all the pain behind me and all the letdowns from you and the leaders and all of that, let me tell you something. It's amazing how I turn and I look at my kids in the final moment and I say, wait a minute, wait a minute. They didn't ask for this. And I have got to pick back up. So I'm doing a vegetarian thing. I mean, I'm not dying a slow death. I am not letting my kids fall. I'm not letting that shit happen. Okay? This doesn't have to happen. You know? And, you know what? This is a Christmas gift. Because, look, this is what it looks like when you deal with your mind. And you know what? Maybe I'm the older brother here. Because if one of you thought, you know what, I need to ask myself those questions too, that's my Christmas gift. I hope you have a really good year next year. For your sake and your children's sake, because they are precious. Merry Christmas.